So we know that the ranking is really important. It affects your downloads. Your downloads are your kind of lifeblood, I guess. So how exactly does the ranking affect your downloads?
I'm going to give you a little story about StockTwits. When we were featured on iTunes App of the Week, we had huge traffic coming not only to our website, but to the app. And we were getting about 2,000 downloads per day. That's a huge amount of numbers. This is a lot of traffic. But if you don't maintain that momentum, pretty much after about a week, you're going to start to see you're going to drop off. You're going to fall off the top 10, and you might get into the top 20.
Now, is that because of Apple's whole, trying to encourage dynamism in the App Store thing? They actually recycle, or they flush people out every week?
Yeah, they're flushing people out every week, and then there's also competition, right? There's other people who are getting crazy amounts of downloads.
Right, because everybody's doing that thing where they're trying to pump up their first week.
Exactly.
So to keep getting those results, you have to put in more and more and more.
Right. And pretty much if you don't keep that momentum up, if you don't have that organic growth, or if you're not getting that advertising exposure that you're shooting for, you're going to slowly move off the top 20, the top 10 to the top 20, top 50, top 100, and then you're pretty much, once you're off the top 100, your chances are pretty low. You're probably only going to get maybe 100 to 200 downloads a day.
So you guys got featured for that first week. You were doing 2,000 a day.
Yep.
That's really good, obviously. And then the second week, what happened?
The second week, we dropped off into not even the top 10. We were kicked off the top 10. We were actually in the top 20. So it only got worse from there. So, and the reason being is we weren't able to keep up that organic growth.
The drop-off is really steep.
Yeah.
It's like immediate.
It's very immediate. Because there's so many other companies that are doing the same thing as you.
Right. Everybody's like
everyone's trying to
get
spike and get in. Right.
Got it. So let's say, once you've gotten up there, what are some different things that you can do to keep your position?
Sure. So making sure you have a really high star rating is really important, and making sure that people are always commenting and leaving good reviews, because that's just going to entice people to make that purchase or make that download.
Okay. So that goes back to the product development part of things. You got to make sure your product is good in order to, earn your high star rating and your good user reviews. What if you messed up and the product's not that good, but you had really good marketing afterward?
So that goes back to redeveloping that specific feature or that section of your app, and you have to go back to, going back to your developer, working with them again, really analyzing what went wrong, read user reviews and see where they're complaining, and then try and amend a fix for that and release an update as soon as possible so that you can continuously keep that momentum.
So I think the really fortunate thing here that I'd just like to highlight is that once somebody has downloaded your app, you're like you're literally in their pocket.
Yep.
So it's a very favorable and sticky place to be. So it's great to just acquire. You don't have to have a perfect product because you can always release updates. Those updates are a great opportunity to iteratively improve your product. Every week or 2 weeks or whatever frequency you can really manage. You mentioned that sometimes users will uninstall your app, but I'm willing to bet that it's actually less common than people think, because it just takes effort to uninstall an app.
Yep, exactly.
And once it's on there, I think a lot of people are just used to sort of keeping whatever, even if they never use it, they're used to just keeping the app on there. And at the same time, once you're sort of on their phone, you can always push the updates out.
Right. And they're going to see that update. They're going to get a little badge in the App Store app icon. It's going to say, hey, this app has a free update. And once they see that, that might tie them in again.
Re-engage
them again. So
yeah, and I think so many of us have tons of apps now where you'll have like 10 updates at once, and instead of going through and saying yes to all of them,
click download all, right?
Download all, yeah. That's great. That's like the one good thing for mobile developers. There are some benefits too. So now that we figured out how we can continually improve the product and get those star ratings, is there anything else you can do to communicate with your users or encourage them to give you reviews or respond to them, or do anything where you're having more of a dialogue between you and the audience?
Sure. So inside of your app, you can actually build in mechanisms where you can collect feedback. So you can have like a support page or give us feedback page. and your users can directly email you, and you can email them back, or you can entice them to rate your app. So maybe after 5 days of using your app, you can throw up a little dialogue that says, hey, you've been using this app for 5 days. If you really like it, give us a nice review. So,
what about Twitter?
Twitter's also really good. You can engage with your community on Twitter. There's a difference between spamming Twitter and actually engaging with your community.
Right. So we're talking less using Twitter for marketing and more using Twitter for customer service and community, like actual community management.
Right.
So if you were to build an app and you wanted to somehow connect it to Twitter, encourage the users of your app to follow the app on Twitter, what kind of mechanism would you use to do that?
So you could build in a feature where as soon as you download the app, you can have a button that says, hey, follow us on Twitter. And then the app can automatically do that for you, do that for your user. So that way your user doesn't actually have to go on twitter.com and find my app and go through that entire process of following me. You can automate that through software, and it's a great way to have your users engaging with you.
So Apple doesn't really make it possible for developers to communicate with users. There isn't any built-in part of the app ecosystem that lets developers respond to reviews or really do anything besides do that dialogue window that says rate this app. But that doesn't mean that you can't take it outside of Apple, or you can't take it, offline, so to speak, and have conversations with your users on Twitter or maybe on a Facebook page or via email.
You should be doing that anyways. You should be fostering your community, because it's not so much that your app is going to be a hit. It's really going to be the community driving the downloads of your app. So the more you engage with the community, the better chances your app is going to succeed.
Right. So speaking of organic growth, you can't be spending $50 or $100 or $100,000 for paid advertising forever.
Right.
So you do want to have organic growth, and the best way to do that is, user to user. I'm like, hey, Shihan, check out this awesome app that I just downloaded. You should get it too. It's free anyway. And Shihan will go, okay, sure, I'll do that now. And that's kind of how it spreads. So you want people to be so pleased and so proud that they are a user of your app that they're going to show it to their friends.
Yeah.
And that's the way it'll keep going without you having to pay for it.
You can even build in, Facebook Connect or Twitter Connect into your product strategy. And basically what that does is, if you have some sort of content that you want to share, you want to open it up and share it with all of your Facebook friends or share it with specific Twitter friends. So being able to integrate that might drive that viral and organic growth.
Let's talk about that for a second. Would you go with Twitter over Facebook or vice versa?
It depends on the context. So for example, when I was doing Tweety Stock, it would make sense that I would engage on Twitter, because that's where all the financial dudes are hanging out.
Sure. It's all about what they're saying on Twitter, so it's got to be integrated to that platform.
And my Facebook friends aren't into finance, so I wouldn't be tweeting or writing on their walls about finance. So it's all about the context that you put it in.
But if it's a mobile game that maybe has a social game counterpart,
that would be a great candidate for Facebook.
You definitely want them to connect with their Facebook account.
And Facebook has the largest community anyways, so most likely using Facebook Connect as your gateway to communicate with the masses of people is probably the best way to go, just because they have such volume, so many users.
What types of apps should not use Facebook or Twitter Connect?
So if you have an app that has highly sensitive data or some sort of personal, private...
Mint.com.
Mint.com, exactly. You don't want to share your financial status with your friends and family, or strangers for that matter.
Right. Like random person you met at a conference.
It's a touchy subject, right? Because privacy is a very touchy subject, and you need to make sure that before your users are giving up their user data, you communicate with them that, hey, we're not going to share this data with anybody else. We want to make sure that the data that you're sharing is what you specified.
So let's say you're not an app about personal finance or anything else really sensitive, like, maybe weight loss or something like that.
Yeah.
Would you encourage all app developers to try to use, Facebook's Connect software, or would you encourage all app developers to use Facebook Connect, or would you say, you should really look at this on a case-by-case basis.
Look at it from a case-by-case basis and give the user options, right? Make the user enable the fact that they're going to share their data. You don't want to automatically do it because not everybody's going to know how exactly your app works. Right. And if you're in the background sending their location, and nobody wants to have a stalker following them around. So make sure that you have privacy controls built in where they're specifically saying, hey, share my data with my friends.
Right. I think that one thing now is that there's a lot of confusion about what gets shared to a news feed. Mm-hmm. And it's like you said, I mean, it can be as extreme as what you said, where there's like, they're afraid that a stalker is going to find them, but it could also just be you don't want to spam your friends. Yeah. And you don't want to have like weird, embarrassing activity notifications getting pushed out via your new. You don't want to be that guy on Facebook.
We all have one friend that's that guy, though.
Yeah, of course, or many of them, and they're annoying, even though you like them in real life, and you just don't want to be that person. Yeah. And so, if you're the app developer, don't make your users into that person, because then they just won't ever use your app again.
Right.